Welcome to episode number 2 of Real Estate Success Podcast, where we interview top real estate entrepreneurs, practitioners, and investors, and we really break it down. My name is Tommy Kim, your host, with my co-host, Cole Harvey. What's up, Cole?
What's going on, Tommy? Thank you guys so much for joining us today. If you like the content, if you like what you hear, as always, please smash that subscribe button below. Today's guest, we are incredibly honored to have Jim Remley. Jim is a very, very well-respected and well-known veteran of the real estate industry. Starting off as a solo agent at age 19 to creating his own brokerage brand at age 24, expanding that to 7 locations, moving on to being a well-known speaker, coach, mentor, broker operator of John L. Scott Real Estate with the largest independent brokerage in the Pacific Northwest. You're going to have so much information today. Just pay attention and comment below if there's anything else you guys would like us to follow up with regarding Jim or anything else on this podcast.
Yeah, if we're providing massive value, please click on the subscribe, give us a thumbs up. Look forward to seeing you on future episodes. Enjoy. Let's get into it. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the episode of Real Estate Success Podcast. We have a very special guest here today, my mentor, my good friend, and someone I look up to in the industry so much, Mr. Jim Remley. Cole, I wanted you to do the introduction because Jim has such an extensive background. So I'll turn it over to my co-host, Cole, to make the introduction.
Thank you, Tommy. Yeah, it's really hard. It's almost hard where to start, but Jim is widely known across the real estate space, both not only from his career as a sales agent and also as a broker manager, but also as a coach and a mentor. You can see him everywhere. Jim started in this industry when he was only 19 years old. And then I believe within, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe within 24 months, he was in the top 1% nationally of performing agents, about 150 deals a year, which in turn, he launched his first office, his own independent office at age 24, and then grew that into 17 locations, which made it the largest independent brokerage, I believe, in the state of Oregon. And now he's the broker for John L. Scott, which is a tremendous company in the Pacific Northwest. In 2021, they did about 1.4 billion in sales, almost 3,100 sides of business, which is just tremendous. He has a very, very deep background in coaching not only agents as well as brokers. We'll talk a little bit about his coaching program later on. He's the co-founder of the Luxury Home Council, which is the accreditation for luxury home sales. You can find him on almost every major real estate podcast, CNN, radio. He's a published author of multiple books on not only real estate sales, but also wealth building. And yeah, I'm thrilled to know him and also have him as a coach for our own business. So thank you so much, Jim, for taking the time to do this for us today.
Cole, I'm going to bring you on the road with you. Did such a good job with that, man. I'm excited to hear what I have to say.
I'll just warm you up every time. We'll be great.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be with you guys. I totally respect what you guys are doing out there in Southern California, and you're growing a great company. I'm honored to be on your program.
Yes, Jim. Thank you so much for being on. So there's so much to unpack. Can you just give us like a story of how you guys started in the industry, and just now you have such a big journey. So we're going to try to get the golden nuggets from you as much as we can. So if you could just share us how you guys started.
I'll do a little micro version of my backstory. Okay. So I'm a college dropout, first of all. Not necessarily proud of that. I'm pushing my kids to college. I got my first college graduate in the family. So my son just graduated from OIT. I'm super proud of him with a degree in software engineering. So,
wow.
But my path personally was I went to work in a lumber mill straight out of high school at age 17. Buddy of mine talked me into getting my real estate license. His dad owned a real estate company, and he actually didn't finish. I went on and finished my education. I was working graveyard at the mill, going to college during the day, and got my real estate license. And as soon as I got my license, I'm like, I'm done with all this. I quit college. I quit the mill, and I went to the first office I drove by. I pulled in and said, "You guys hiring?" They said, "Yes." I said, "Oh, I'm in luck. Great. Where do I sign?" So I signed up as a 19-year-old kid, and super green beyond years, but I failed a lot. I mean, my first 6 months was not like some rise to fame. It was a struggle. I barely got by. When I entered the business, I came with $1,500 a refund from the IRS. That was my bankroll, and I was driving a blue Chevy Citation.
Nice, very nice.
But I turned it around after 6 months, and I then started on a path where I took 150 listings in my second year, and then got into the top 1%, and things started to roll from there. But in terms of a nugget in there, like people ask me what changed, how do you go from failing for the first 6 months to now taking 150 listings? What changed was I quickly learned that I didn't know what I didn't know. And what I needed to figure out was, what were the other people doing in my market and around the country that were performing at a high level? And then I needed to model what they're doing exactly. And I didn't need to rethink it. I didn't need to think I'm smarter than them. I just need to do exactly what they're doing. So back in my day, 32 years ago, this is pre-internet, pre-podcasts, pre-almost cars. I mean, a long time ago. I read books, and I attended live webinars live seminars. And I bought everything. I didn't have the money. I had $1,500 to my name, but I invested in myself, in my career, and I just went all in, kind of a burn the boats approach. And that's what has been my success.
Now, of those 100, if you can recall, of those 150 transactions, kind of how diverse was your lead sourcing? So was that like a mixture of, was that farming? Was that Sphere? Was that FSBO? Was it all the above? Like, it's
a great question. So as a 19-year-old, my sphere of influence wasn't buying homes, right? Yeah. I mean, these kids are still having keggers at their parents' house. So my sphere wasn't buying. So I had to go with another audience. So I basically had no sphere. I had my friends, families and stuff, but none of them wanted to trust me. So I had to go out and create my own business. So I used really 4 different paths. I was heavily with for sale by owners. I listed hundreds of for sale by owners, and expired listings was a big funnel for me. Different than today's market, because expired listings are not really a thing today, because most listings sell almost immediately. That's going to change. But and then absentee owners was a huge category for me as well. And then from that, I started to develop a sphere of influence where people then did know, like, and trust me. And I started to work that. But absentee owners, for sale by owners, and expired listings were my kind of starting point in this business.
Now, have you always worked in the Pacific Northwest? I know you're from Southern California originally, but so as far as working in real estate, were you always in that market in Oregon, or is? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I worked always in this market. Now that I've grown up in the business, and I've traveled across the country speaking, but in terms of working, yeah, definitely in the Northwest for sure.
Okay. And so what did you do, Jim, with those leads? What were you making calls, or how
did that lead process go?
Yeah.
In terms of modeling success, I attended a seminar, and there was a kid that was with me that had just won an award, and he was the number 1 producer in his franchise. And I was like, Brian, how did you do that? I want to know exactly what you do, because we're not in the same market. We're not competing. That's the advantage of going to programs like that. And so I'll tell you exactly what I did. I said, great, tell me everything. So he used what he called the stop, drop, and knock method, which is, when he saw it for sale by owner, he would stop his car, drop what he was doing, and go knock on the door. And I said, yeah, but what do you say exactly? Like, exactly what do you say? And he said, here's my exact script. When I go to the door, I say, and today we would change this, and I'll give you how we changed it today. Things have changed, right? But
sure.
Back then, what we would say is, hey, notice your sign. So signs work. That's why I'm here. I'm a realtor. Hey, I'm not here to list your property. I'm not going to ask you for a listing. I just have a quick question. But I respect your decision, Sonia. Just a quick question. So when I say that, I'm not here to list your property. I respect your decision, Sonia. Their defenses come down, because they're like, oh, he's not going to come after me for a listing. So I don't need to be like, have my guard up. And they say, well, what's the question? I say, well, I work with a lot of buyers that are out there in the marketplace that are interested in for sale by owners right along with the listed properties. Would it be okay if I showed your house if I have somebody that would fit your property? I don't want to say I have a buyer today, because I don't want to lie to you. But if I have a buyer, would it be okay for me to show the house? In my experience, about 80% of the for sale by owners would say yes to a version of that script. And then I would say, well, if you wouldn't mind, since I'm already here, can I make an appointment with you, just take a quick 10-minute walkthrough? I will tell you that the difference between doing that in person and doing that over the phone is big. Mm-hmm. Much, much, much higher close rate. Okay. So now how would I adjust that today? Today, we do it through text because people don't want to answer the door to a stranger as much, right? Not that door knocking doesn't work, because it can still work. But today I might do a text and I might say exactly the same verbiage. And I also might do a video text. I mean, I'm training a lot of my coaching students today that we do a recorded video text and say, hey, I just drove by your house, same exact script. But we do it in a video quick, goes right back to the client. We know that 90% of those texts are going to be opened and read in the first 5 minutes. And about 60% of marketing texts will be responded to. So it's still a high rate. And that's really doing really, really well with my clients. Then the question is, of course, okay, now you got the appointment. You told them you weren't going to ask for the listing. Now what do you do? Right? You promised them you were going to ask for the listing. So my approach for that, which was school of hard knocks, right? Sometimes, and I always tell agents this, you got to let go of instant gratification. You got to accept that your success in this business is going to be built on a mountain of failures. And that's the fastest way you learn. It's like that 10,000 hour rule. The faster you get through that 10,000 hours, the more successful you'll become. So once I got in a house, I would use the approach of asking great questions and just walking through hey, tell me everything you guys have done to the house since you owned it. What do you guys like most about living here? The W questions. Where are you guys going to move to next? Why are you selling? Kind of into those question marks. And through moving with people in motion, by the way, I never do that setting where I'm just stalled in one spot. When you stall in one spot, people start to get uncomfortable. You feel like they're getting trapped. But when I'm in movement, especially guys, when I'm in movement and we're talking as we're moving, guys are much more likely to open up and talk. Guys hate to be sitting and talking for any length of time.
For sure.
Gals are much more attuned to that, but guys, for some reason, we have this weird thing. We want to be in action. So walking through the house, asking the questions, and then at the end, I'd say, hey guys, I told you I was going to ask you for a listing, and I'm not. But I do have a quick question. And I'd say yes. And they're waiting for the shoe to drop. I go, oh, he's going to lie, And I'd say, no, I promised I was going to ask you for a listing, but can I ask you this? If you guys aren't successful selling on your own, do you think at any point you might decide to work with a realtor? And they usually say, yeah, we probably will at some point. So the timeline on that, would that be like, 2 weeks, 2 months, 2 years? Or try to insert some laughter, try to get them laughing, having fun with it. And they say 2 months, great. If you wouldn't mind, I'd love to be somebody that's on your short list to be interviewed if you get to that point. In the meantime, as I promised, I'm going to try to show your house to one of my active buyers. And if you don't mind, every week or so, I'll just check in, see if the house is still available. Maybe I'll tell you a little bit about what's happening in the market if I see something change. Is that cool with you guys? Great. That's it. That was my script. That was my approach. Now, I might also leave the door open for some other value-added stuff where I might say, hey, has anybody showed you the 10 other properties that somebody's likely to look at if they look at your property? What are your 10 top competitors? What are your, we call them now, what are your, not your profile, but what are your, I guess it's the most likely competitors is what we call it. Yeah. So that was my approach.
Interesting. And, I think it seems so funny to me because, in practice, I think agents spend like an afternoon on the FSBO database and then they get discouraged, but the numbers have never changed. NAR looks at this for decades, right? It's never been less than 93% that always list eventually. Yeah.
What's interesting about that, when you say, Paul, is this, and you're right, NAR studied this. And back in when the internet was just starting, so let's say it was 93, 94, the prediction was, this is going to be a total game changer. Now everybody's just going to FSBO online. Realtors will be disintermediated, just like travel agents and financial people. And so, but what was really interesting about that was back then, about 87% of people went with a traditional agent, about 13% went with FSBO, right? Those numbers have actually gone the reverse. People have actually gone more towards using an agent. And now that number, you're right, is like 92, 93. I think last year it was 96%. Mm-hmm. So, it's super high. 94% of people are using a realtor. So when you're driving by these for sale by owner signs, 94% of them are going to work with a realtor. It's just which one? Is it going to be you or your competitor? And you're so right, too, about we are so conditioned as agents to want instant gratification. So the way we serve that, because now we're using DoorDash, Instacart, we want Amazon Prime. Now we decide 24 hours isn't good enough. We want it in 2 hours. I mean, I'm paying extra for the 2-hour Amazon Prime delivery. So when agents are like, what do you mean I got to wait a week for a lead to generate? I got to wait a week for incubation. They're just like, I can't handle it. I want to buy a lead from Zillow because they'll give it to me today. And the problem with it is 99.5% of those leads Zillow's giving you are total complete crap. So you're just buying leads for no reason. But with us, what we learned was that there's a 4 to 6 week incubation period with FSBOs in general. So if I say today is my day, Jim has got me fired up and motivated, I'm going to go out and start doing some FSBOs today. I got to put a pin on my map and I got to say, I cannot accept results or expect results for 4 to 6 weeks because that's the average incubation period. So I start talking to somebody today. The average time it's going to take for them to ripen on the vine to be ready to be picked be 4 to 6 weeks. I might get lucky and get somebody in between that time, but probably not. So that means I got to be sticking with them week in, week out, week in, week out, week in, week out. And then bingo, like magic, it'll happen. Like magic. 4 to 6 weeks goes by and bingo, you're going to start to get listings. I've listed hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them. I can tell you it will happen. You just got to put the time in.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So looking back at that time period, then like age 19 to 24, I'm going to somewhat assume that when you opened your own office, were you still in production or did you?
I was still in production. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So looking back on that, I mean, look, even by today's standards, 150 transactions per year is phenomenal, right? Like anyone would want that, but would you do anything different or do you wish you had done things? Would you have done anything different that would have maybe changed your volume or your production?
That's a great question. The thing that I think every person that achieves any level of success in this business wishes they had done differently from day one is to work that database more effectively and to say, I wish I would have dropped every single person I had a warm conversation into a database and worked that because it would have taken years off my trajectory.
Right.
And my life would have been so much easier. Instead of grinding so hard, I would have been able to be 85, 90% referral based in 3 years rather than 5 or 6 or 8 or 10 years. So that's the number one thing I would have changed.
Did you ultimately reach like a complete referral base eventually?
It got to, I would say, 90, 95% referral at the end. And then when I was transitioned to becoming a brokerage owner, I then moved my business. I started referring my business off because as you grow your brokerage, you start to have less and less time for sales. So that's what happened for me. So I just started referring that business off. And then once you start doing that, your database is not your database anymore. It just kind of goes away. Right. That's what I did. Yeah. Good question though.
Yeah. So what was the trajectory, Jim, from then? What paths did you lead down after that?
After from the going into the brokerage side?
Yeah.
So I was a really terrible like an agent. I was a really terrible broker too. So I mean, it was me and my buddy opened our office with our assistant. So we had one of the first teams, me and my buddy Scott, in really I think all of Oregon. I mean, it was very rare. It was 2 guys having a team. Everybody thought, we were in a domestic relationship. Honestly, we weren't. And it would have been fine if we were, but we weren't. And it was just unheard of that 2 guys would be partners, in real estate back in 1989, 1990, 1991 too. And what happened from there, though, was we said, okay, we're going to go out there and crush it as a real estate office. We opened our office, we had our assistant, but then it was kind of crickets. It was like, nothing's really changed except we're selling real estate under our own brand. Got a lot more headaches. So we thought, how can we build this company? And the first thing we thought was, we'll go out and start recruiting new agents, people that are like us, that are passionate about the business, that want to go out there and crush it. And what we started doing is career seminars. So we do a career seminar every single month. We would advertise in the newspaper back then, and we rent a hotel room, conference room. We'd come in and we'd do a big rah kind of thing. And we would get a packed house. I'd get 50, 60 people in a room. And of that, 5, 10 people would be excited about getting the license. And then maybe 1 or 2 would eventually progress to getting their license. And so we did that every month for years, for like 3 or 4 years. And we did fill our company with new agents. And so we got to a point where we had 20 agents, 30 agents, 40 agents, 50 agents. And I will say some of those people did develop into some superstars that are still crushing in the market today. My buddy Troy Schuyler, I hope maybe he's watching this now. Keller Williams agent who's crushing it. He's got a big team. Kelly Jarvis still crushing it with a huge team. So a lot of people that we did start with back then are still out there crushing it. But what we didn't realize as newbie owners was that there's an 87% attrition rate in this industry. 87% of the people entering the industry will not survive the first 2 years. So for a brokerage owner, we were grinding through all this effort and just working to these people, and then they wouldn't turn out. Eventually, the pivot point, which is a great question, was we decided, wait a second, we got to change this trajectory. So we started focusing on experienced agents. And we started looking at, okay, who are the people that have made it past the first 2 years, that have sold some real estate, but are looking for something better, something different, where we maybe have better technology, we have better marketing, we have better staff, maybe better brokerage support, and we can offer them. And then we started attracting experienced agents. And that's really when we started taking off, and we started to grow the 17 offices and started attracting other people that come to our group. And so hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. What were some of the things, Jim? And then you grew it to a certain size, and was it the goal to sell off the company then? Was it?
I ended up selling my interest to one of my partners at that point, because I found my passion was speaking and training and coaching. So I became an NAR instructor for 10 years. So I taught the ABR and CRS, GRI, and all those classes across the country. And then, I was focusing on that and investment properties, me buying investment properties. And so that's what I did for many, many years. I still had my license. I was still a part of the company, but most of my interest had gone to my partner. And then at that point, in 2009, I got recruited to come down and run a company down in Southern Oregon. And we took that company from 39 agents now to 220 agents in 3 offices. And we're a Real Trends top 500 company, meaning we're one of the top 500 companies in America by volume. So we did $1.4 billion last year. And our claim to fame for this company is per agent productivity. So we focus 1,000% on helping our individual agents rise their productivity. So we have one of the highest productivity rates in the country. It's about $6 to $7 million per agent, depending on the year, the day, the month. So that's where we're at now.
That's tremendous. And I'm glad you mentioned that, just because I think, having come from a corporate sales background myself, I never understood the brokerages that I had been with that didn't treat it like a giant sales team and made sure that everyone was performing and everyone was on the ball and everyone was moving their business forward daily, as opposed to simply just, collecting a desk fee and seeing you on Easter kind of potluck kind of thing.
Yes. I think that's the sign of a good broker, is that they really care about their individual brokers, right? And when you look at it from a sense of, this is a way of family and this is a partnership, and we like to use the word partnership, that we're partners, and when you make money, I make money, and when you're successful, I'm successful. That's the way really good brokers operate. And I think it's so true when you look at a lot of companies maybe that have 500, 600, 1,000 agents in them sometimes, but you look at their production and they're doing 1 or 2 transactions per agent. I mean, that's kind of a soul-sucking operation. I wouldn't want to be a part of that. Like, what? No way. Why? I mean, it's just like, what's going on here? And this is just like a machine. I don't want to be part of it. I want to know my agents. I want to know their aspirational goals. I want to see where they're at in life and what they're trying to do, and see if we can move that ball forward. And I know Tommy and Cole, you guys are like me, passionate about wealth building. And that's something I'm passionate about too. And helping agents understand that path is really where they should be focused on.
Well, I mean, we're in the game. I don't know why they would want to play anywhere else. It just seems to make sense.
Yeah, for sure. Right. What I love about you guys is now you guys you created kind of a wealth building concept in your own company, which I think is super smart, and got to be a huge attraction point for your team too, which is really brilliant.
Yeah, Jim, on your wealth building too. So let's dive into, you're a big proponent of wealth building, owning what we sell.
Yes.
Can you share some strategies behind that? And some, you have, apartments, mobile home parks, like a bunch of different assets that are cash flowing. So.
Yeah. So again, School of Hard Knocks. I'm the dumbest millionaire you'll ever meet in your life. So, I've done every stupid thing imaginable with my money. And I've lost a lot of money. I've lost more money than a lot of people make in a lifetime. So I'm the guy that bought Singer sewing machines and Wards, Montgomery Wards, and I bought Converse shoes. All three of those stocks went bankrupt, by the way. And I thought, they'll never go bankrupt. These guys are national brands. So for me, I've tried to win in all kinds of different categories. But what I kept coming back to was, you know what? And Cole said it, we can't be the cobbler that's not wearing any shoes. The worst thing can happen to you is you can have a client say to you, where should I invest my money? And you say, I invest in stock market, invest in crypto, or, why would you do that when you sell real estate? It'd be like going to your stockbroker and having to say, go buy crypto. What? Well, shouldn't you be selling me on stocks, right? We need to sell. We need to own what we sell. We need to believe in what we sell. And we have such a huge advantage in this industry that we have insider knowledge, and it's not illegal for us to have it. So we truly have a massive advantage. Stockbrokers can't do what we can do. I mean, stockbrokers will get arrested and put in jail for what we have the opportunity to do. So we hear a hot tip, we can act on it, right? If somebody in the office says, hey, I got somebody that wants to sell and they're willing to discount their price, great, I can act on it. You just couldn't do that in another industry. My thought process on this for me for years has been, I want agents just to accept one thing, that if they can buy one property a year, this is my coaching with them. All I want you to do is buy one. You don't have to be, buying 25 properties. Buy one property, just one. And then I want you to have a 20-year plan. So one property a year, forget the numbers behind it, but I'm going to give you some fake numbers. Let's say you bought that property for $300,000 in your market, if you could afford that. And you had to come up with 20% down or 25% down. And that's a stretch, but you just add it to your goal set. You say, if I know I'm going to buy this $300,000 property, now I've got to make enough money to do that. That's part of my goal set. And I do that. I buy the $300,000 property. I get a 20-year loan, and I just have it, put it out in the market and rent it and have a break even, or maybe not even break even. Maybe it's a little bit underwater, but in 3 or 4 years, it's above water. But so it's close. Every year I do that. I replicate that. I buy another property. I get it to somewhat cash flow. I'm not trying to make money on these individual properties right now. I just want them to break even. Just by breaking even, I'm going to create a massive tax advantage for myself. Massive, huge tax edge for myself. So that's what I'm trying to do. At the end of 20 years, but first of all, at the end of 10 years, statistically, there's no way you cannot be a millionaire. So it's a statistical fact to be a millionaire in 10 years, just from that approach. But at the end of 20 years, I want you to look at what I can do. Real estate doubles in value every 10 years statistically. So all those houses you bought for $300,000 at the 10-year mark are probably worth $600,000. Well, let's assume that doesn't happen. Let's assume we go through some market correction and it takes 20 years for you to double in value. Won't happen, but let's assume it does. So you get to the year 20, that first house you bought is now worth what? $600,000. The second house you bought is worth $600,000 the second year, and so forth and so on. But they're also all paid off, because you put them on 20-year loans. They're all paid off. And now if I want to retire, I can retire on $600,000 a year for the next 20 years. Most of us could live on $600,000 a year, right? So that's the retirement plan I want to put in place for every agent that I work with. And by the way, what will happen is you won't sell that property. You won't reverse course and start selling them, because you'll start making so much cash flow you won't need to. And because of probate and inheritance taxes, you'll just give them to your kids upon your passing. And they'll have a step up in basis, and there'll be no reason to do that. Whole nother conversation, but I'm just telling you, the pathway to wealth is definitely ownership of real estate. For me, it's a life changer. The beauty of it is that it takes all the sales pressure off of you. Once you hit that 10-year mark, or it's for some of you, it'll be accelerated, maybe it's 5 years, and you are, on paper, you've made some money and you've got some equity and you got some wealth. Suddenly, you have so much relief coming off your shoulders that I don't have to worry about making my house payment. I don't have to worry about making my car payment. I'm solvent. I'm financially stable. The market goes up and down. I'm not dead. If I don't make a transaction happen, I'm not going to, I'm not going to make my mortgage payment. I'm okay. My stress level relieves. And now I'm actually stronger, not weaker. So there's so many advantages to it.
Yeah, a lot of agents coming into this business, they have two goals. Typically, it's 100,000 in gross commissions in first year, or eventually have 10,000 of positive cash flow a month in investments. So that's like the direction that everybody wants to do. Jim, a lot of agents are quite stuck. I think I don't know if it's limiting beliefs or these things about, buying real estate is hard, or owning a lot of rental properties is hard, or what would you recommend to someone that's like not being able to pull that trigger to start investing in real estate?
Well, the fear is always that you get afraid of the numbers, right? So you get afraid of, I'm going to take out a $250,000 mortgage or a $500,000 mortgage. But all other kinds of debt, like car debt, credit card debt, those kinds of debts, short-term debts, those are something we should not be carrying, right? I'm a believer in having all those debts paid off. Mortgage debt is a different animal because mortgage debt is what's going to enable you to leverage yourself into wealth really quickly. And because the asset can be sold for the mortgage value 99.9% of the time, you have no risk, really. I mean, you're going to be able to escape that debt. It's not like it's going to be hanging over you, right? So somebody just asked me this question a couple of days ago, one of my coaching students. She said, Jim, I have some cash. Should I pay cash for a property because I could do it, or should I get a mortgage? It's a great question, right? So I said, well, let's look at this from an analytical standpoint. If you can get that loan for 4.5%, which is probably reasonable in today's market, the question mark is, would it make sense to get that loan or pay cash for the property? Here's why it makes sense to get the loan. Because if inflation's rising at 7%, 7.9% last month, that means that real estate's probably going up in value even more than that. I mean, and statistically it always has. So in most markets last year, it went up about 15%. So if I'm getting money at 4.5% and inflation's rising at 15.5%, I am making money all day long by taking the bank's money at 4.5% when inflation's rising much faster. Because if I invest my cash and can get 15% or even 10% or even 8%, I'm beating the market by a large degree. So this is one of another way that we leverage wealth in real estate. The other fear point with realtors too will be, I don't want to be somebody that's like a property manager. I don't want to have to manage the properties. And I learned, again, school of hard knocks. I bought my first few properties and I tried to manage it. And I felt like I immediately knew, oh my God, I cannot do this. I can't have people calling me with plumbing problems. I can't have people calling me, telling me they got ants in their house. I cannot be the guy that's getting those calls. I mean, it's just, I don't have time for it. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to deal with it. I can't go chase people for their rent, and I'm not going to take people to court. So what I did is I said, I'm just going to factor in a property manager in every transaction. I'm not going to buy a property unless I can afford a property manager. And that's what I did. So from I would say day one, from about year two, I'll call it, I started having property managers factored in. And now that's all at a distance for me. I have never taken a call from a tenant. I don't deal with any of that stuff. That's all at a distance. And it's well worth the 8 or 10%. So that's how I look at it.
Yeah, that's really amazing. That's really good. So in terms of, if we go back to your business, a lot of agents are like, you took the company when you joined John L. Scott, it took it was quite a bit of scaling. So all agents always want to scale, do more sales, make more money. Can you give us some tips on like how you were able to scale?
So this is an interesting thing about newer agents. I always find it interesting when I'm talking to a newer agent, maybe a year or two in the business, they say, I want to build a team. First thing's out of their mouth 90% of the time. Right. My question is, why do you want to build a team? Okay. Because the most profitable agents in this industry are not teams. And I coach some of the biggest teams in the country. My biggest team closed 140 million last year. So believe me, I know about teams. But the people that make the most money in this country are the agents that are one solo agent with an assistant and maybe a transaction coordinator. They make the most money. Nothing wrong with teams if that's your direction, but a team is you building a business within a business. You're basically building a brokerage within a brokerage, so to speak. And there's nothing wrong with it. But what happens is you're splitting your money out amongst a large group of people. The people that are going to go down the direction of a team have to understand one thing, though. So when a new agent say, I want to build a team, I'll say, why do you want to build a team? If they say, I want to make more money, I'll say, that's not the right path for making more money. But if you're going to go down that path and you say, I want to do a lot of volume and I'm just inspired to help people, that should be the biggest reason, by the way, inspired to help other people model success or follow my path. Those are great reasons to have a team. But if I do that, what I need to understand about building a team is the first step in building a team is having a lead generation platform that will support a team. Okay. No buddy joins a team that's bringing you business. I've heard this fallacy that, hey, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to bring in 2 or 3 agents, and they're going to bring in $3 or $4 million each, and then I'm going to be doing 15 million. I'm going to make. That's not the way it works. These people that are joining your team are not lead generators. That's why they're joining your team, right? They want to have their hand out and say, Jim, give me 3 or 4 leads a day so I can go sell some real estate. And in exchange, I'll give you half my fees, right? So first step, I use the analogy of the bakery. If you are a bakery and you want to sell more donuts, what do? Do you hire more employees because you think their family and friends are going to come and buy some donuts from you? No.
Right.
What do? You find more customers that will buy more donuts, and then you have a need to make more donuts. First step is you got to have a lead source that delivers consistently enough business to you, right? So first step for all people that are trying to build and scale is I got to solve the equation of how do I get more leads? The lead equation is first and foremost. All the system building, team building in the world won't solve that. Lead generation is the key.
Yeah, that's huge. That's really huge.
Absolutely.
So Jim, like thank you for so much for your time. We're getting to that point. Can you give us some tips on, like, if you were to go back, what would you tell your younger self to do?
What would I tell my younger self? That's a great question. I think I would tell my younger self, focus more on relationships. I think relationships are key. I think a lot of young agents, and I was one of these guys, that we become it's easy to become very transactional. And transactional meaning I'm just trying to hit numbers. I'm trying to get to 50 transactions, 60 transactions, 70 transactions, whatever the numbers are. And instead of saying, I got to look at every person I'm talking to as a new relationship. And this relationship, if I cultivate it, will actually lead to an incredible partnership down the road. Well, they're going to send me all these referrals. And I read a study on Inman News a few years ago, and they had determined what was the lifetime value of a real estate client. And lifetime value back then was $88,000. I'm sure today it's more like $125,000. So if we look at it, or more, it could be more. So when you look at that, and that was like if they do 3 or 4 transactions over their lifetime and they send you 3 or 4 leads, this is the lifetime value, GCI, of an average client. So if you think about that, I've got 10 clients, that's $1 million if I'm treating them with the respect we deserve. And that's probably what I didn't do initially, as I didn't look at these people with enough respect from the relationship side of it. I was more transactional than relational.
That's huge. Yeah.
I'd be curious to your opinion on, and this isn't a loaded question, I promise, but we reference the attrition rate in this industry. From a enterprise standpoint, we talk about it all the time. I think it's interesting that the statistics are in the 80s, because on the ground, it feels more like over 90, to be honest, right?
Yeah.
So I've been licensed for, this is my 14th year. Tommy's got, I think, 3 years on me. Most of the agents we deal with, most of the people that are going to hear this have been in the game a lot shorter amount of time, right? So sure. They don't remember the short sale era. They don't remember the REO era. They don't remember any of that. They've not to say they had it good, but like the market's been how it has been for quite a few years now. With everything that's going on in the world right now, we're recording this, obviously, this is March of 2022, right? So we know that the adjustment's coming. What are you advising your agents, and what would you suggest to agents that have not been through a cycle like this before? What should they be focusing now for this year and the next year, now that we are heading in towards a correction, or at least a change in how our workflow is going to be, and a change in the market?
That's an excellent question. So when you look at it, there's just a study I just read that 60% of the agents in the market today, and you remember there's like 2 million agents, 60% have not lived through a down cycle. Right. So the vast majority, like you're saying, have been only in an up cycle. So the down cycle, and when we say down cycle, it's a recession. Let's just say what it is. You cannot be in a bull market forever. Eventually a bear market comes. It's the nature of cycles, right? So for us in this industry, we're probably 13 or 14 years into a 7-year cycle where we're way overdue for a correction in our industry. So it's coming like a freight train. It's likely going to come this year or next. I mean, it's not going to be too far off. But what does that mean? Does that mean it's going to be the Great Recession again? So let's get that out of our head. This is a totally different time. But it does mean that the market will adjust. And so we have to decide right now, are we market-driven or strategy-driven? And my litmus test for that, when I ask agents, is, what do you think? Do you think you're market-driven or strategy-driven? My litmus test is always, I can tell you which you are, but if you answer one question, and the question is, do you know where your next client's coming from? And it's like, no. So you're literally praying to the real estate guys, and somebody's going to fall out of the sky, right? That's pretty much what you're doing. So yeah, well, then you're market driven. You're not strategy driven. So if I say to myself, the only agents that are going to thrive in a changing market will be strategy driven agents. Now I've got to get on board with strategy, right? And by the way, in a down market, you will see some agents rise and actually outproduce what they did in the up market. And you'll be like, how are those people doing that? What's happening is it's like rats off a sinking ship. The weakest agents, the ones that have been picking off 1 or 2 transactions a year, they won't be able to do that anymore. So they'll exit the business, right? Mm-hmm. Those 1 or 2s out there, which are hundreds of agents in every market, maybe thousands in your market. Well, now those 1 or 2 transactions will flow back into the market, and the top tiers, the top agents that are strategy driven will start to pick those up. So how do I change my strategy? The way you change your strategy is you start thinking about, what am I doing on a daily basis that is going to create compound results? And I'll give you some examples of that. For instance, if you went back in time a year and you went back to like January of last year, and you said to yourself, did I call everybody in my database twice last year? Did you?
Of course not.
No. Right? Did you handwrite a note twice a year to everybody in your database? Did you do an email newsletter? Do you have a YouTube channel? Right? Are you posting on social media? Are you doing a networking lunch, breakfast, dinner, drinks with 2 to 3 people a week in your database? I mean, what are you doing to drive these relationships as close as humanly possible? Do you know the aspirational goals of your top 10 people in your database? Like, do you know what they're trying to do this year? Do you know what their biggest goals are in life? Like, do you know the kids' names? Those are the kinds of things that will really help you start to say, you know what, I have a lot of room to improve my strategy, just a tremendous amount. And by doing that, that's going to enable you to weather the storm where other agents won't. The second thing I would say is you got to commit to what I would say, there's a great book. I know you guys are going to ask me about a book. There's a book called Grit by Angela Duckworth, which is going to apply to this time right now. And it's all about perseverance and really diving deep. But with this is the idea of mental toughness and letting go of this idea that your emotional state matters. Like how you feel today and how you woke up this morning matters to some degree. It doesn't matter a bit, right? You got to do your job regardless of your emotional state. And so I'm always trying to coach agents. I want you to let go of choice and let go of this idea that you have choices. You don't have any choices unless you've hit your numbers. Then you have the luxury of choice. So here's an example of this. If I'm going to really outperform, I'm going to create 5 non-negotiables I have to do every single day. And then once I hit those 5 non-negotiables, you can have all the choice in the world you want, but you have the 5 non-negotiables first. For me, that would be like, I got to spend an hour in lead generation every single day. I got to be meeting with a client every single day. I got to be setting an appointment every single day. I got to be adding something to my sphere of influence every single day, right? I got to be posting on social media every single day. Once I've done those 5 things, you got free reign. That's the kind of thing where they say, I don't get permission to do anything else until that. That will lead to compound results, that mental toughness. Joshua Smith, who I know we're both all good friends with Joshua, he turned me on to the hard 75 thing. I know you guys have heard me talk about this before, but that is, I'm not doing it to the degree he is. I mean, this guy's got like 6% body fat or something crazy.
Oh, no one does anything to that, Joshua.
It did turn me on to this idea. And what a 75 hard is 75 days straight of no drinking, working out twice a day, drinking a gallon of water, reading 10 pages in a book, a nonfiction book, basically. That's the path. And if you try to do that, you talk about it and say, oh, I could do that. Really? Try it. You show me that you can do it. It is super, super hard to get it done. I'm proud of myself. I've done it. I've done like 10 times now where I've got 30 days in, 10 days in, 5 days in, and then you restart, right? There's some party that comes over, I got to have a drink, and you restart, right? It just happens. But the idea is, can you get mentally tough enough, just like this in real estate? You have a hard 75 for real estate. Like you start to condition yourself, like I'm going to do this every day. There's going to be some blips, but you come back right on the horse. So today, now I will say I'm proud of myself because today I'm working out twice a day, and I don't do it every single day, but I'm doing it 5 days a week at least. And that's what Hard 75 has done for me. Is it's like retrain myself. Like I don't get permission to think about it. I just have to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and get on the freaking Peloton, whether I like it or not. My emotional state doesn't matter. That's the kind of commitment you have to have when you're trying to weather a storm that's coming at you, and you think all the skies are dark. There's no light at the end of the tunnel. This just looks like the world's collapsing around us, and we can put one foot in front of the other. That's how you win in a changing market. And you'll see everybody else will fall away, and you'll be the last man standing. It's a long answer to a short question.
No, but that's perfect, because I think that's the nuance that people need to understand, that it's not, most people, I think, kind of watch the train run them over in situations like this. I mean, we always talk about, Tommy got his license 3 years ahead of me. And so when he sat for his test, it was like, 800 people or something like that at the convention center. And I took my test middle of the crash, and there was like 15 of us in a conference room in downtown LA with Scantrons, So, all these, a lot goes away when things get a little difficult, but there's a lot of opportunity there too.
There's a great, it was a great documentary about what people do during a plane crash. And there's the 3 F's, right? It's flight, fight, or freeze. And that's kind of like what happens to us in a crisis. It can apply to any crisis. Like, do you fight through the crisis? Do you have this idea that you're going to flee and run off? Or do you freeze? And the vast majority of people, it's just shocking, freeze. And you're like, when you say that you just watch the train run over them, that's exactly what they do. They don't know what to do. They just stand there. So we have to, prepare for this. What we know is coming, right? This isn't an if, it's just a matter of when. And what we're doing right now will set the stage for how we perform in 2022, 2023 for sure, the rest of 2022.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jim. There's so much that Jim's unpacking, you guys. I wrote down notes of mental things, and you're getting me fired up. Actually, some of our agents at the office were starting Heart 75 as a group in April 1st. So
nice, I love it. Yeah. Go fire it up.
We're gonna have to.
Jim, you had mentioned about the book Grid. Is there any other real estate or entrepreneurial book that you might want to suggest?
I'm going to go back to my 16-year-old self, and I'll say the book that changed my life was Awaken the Giant Within by Tony Robbins. So if you haven't ever read that book, that changed my life. As coming from a poor family that had never owned a home before, and nobody ever graduated college, neither did I, but it did reset my brain of what was possible and what were my limiting beliefs, and why was I doing what I was doing, and how could I change my life. It's a great book to read if you haven't read it.
Wow. Thank you. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So Jim, what would be the best way for our audience to get a hold of you, find out more about you? I know you're doing some great things out there. So.
Oh, thank you, buddy. So you got a great coaching program that we call the Path Performance Coaching. Tommy's crew is a part of that. And we do brokerage coaching and agent coaching. And if you want to get, explore more about that, I know Tommy's going to have a link in this bio section down here. You guys can click the link and go check it out. We have, at the agent level, we have 20 weeks of kind of a boot camp style. Every day for 20 weeks, we get you on a lead generation path. And then we give you hundreds of downloads with that and 3 live coaching sessions every single week. So we got a lot of great training material that really get you fired up and come into this market with a strategy.
Yeah. Jim, I want to go ahead.
One last question I want to know is, so we're almost at the end of the first quarter. How are you on track compared to last year's numbers?
That's a great question.
3,000 last year. So 3,000 sides, 3,100. Where are you at now?
Well, last month we beat our last February. So
all right.
This month it's a little down. I'll tell you that. I mean, it's a little bit softer this month, but overall we're on pace. I suspect that the transaction counts are going to be tested because of interest rates and buyer resistance to pricing. And what I think will happen is you're going to see some friction in the market, and the friction will be buyers will say, I can't afford this payment because interest rates have gone up. Sellers are going to say, I don't want to reduce my price because my neighbor got this 3 months ago. You get a little bit of friction. And we saw this right before the pandemic hit. We saw it in the winter of 2019, the December 2019, the market had fallen off. 2020, it started to come back a little bit, but it was soft. And then the pandemic hit, and we had a whole new game. But we had buyer resistance starting to come into the market. I see buyer resistance going to hit us, but what will happen is it'll pull sellers back down to earth on pricing. prices are what's going to be the first thing that moderates in a changing market. It's actually going to be good and healthy for the market. The market cannot continue a double-digit appreciation. It's not healthy for anybody. So this is going to be a rubber band. It's going to pull back, but it's going to be a little bit painful. It'll be a 2 or 3 months adjustment period, and then hopefully we'll kind of get back on track. What we can expect over time is it'll eventually return to the normalized, and when I say normalized, it's a good thing, 4 to 5% appreciation, which I saw for the first 25 years of my career. First 25 years of my career, you can bank on 4 to 5% appreciation. We've only had these weird blips over the last 10 or 15 years where we've had some runaway appreciation happen, but it's not normal. This is not normal appreciation. So you're going to get back to that kind of normal baseline. We're going to have some bumps along the way, but we'll get back to the other side.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Jim. Those of you guys watching, wherever you're joining on our podcast or on YouTube channel, man, there was tons of stuff that Jim unpacked there. You guys can probably go back and rinse and repeat. I always rinse and repeat Jim's trainings that we're involved in because there's just so much great material. So you guys, as always, we're going to be interviewing phenomenal speakers like Jim. Jim just threw out tons of great nuggets. So as always, you guys follow us on future events and then subscribe and like us on our YouTube channel. All right. So we'll get going from here. Thank you so much, Jim. You're super busy. And as always, level up every day, guys. Bye now.